I didn't even admit to myself that I was drinking to cover pain until February. Was the first time that I ever admitted to anybody but two other people that I had been sexually abused and had physical abuse and emotional abuse and. So, because something happened. I mean, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag yet about rock bottom, but my rock bottom experience is forever etched into my brain of a memory that I never want to feel again.
This is Rock Bottom with Ryan. No sugarcoating, no filters. The pain, the chaos, the truth. No bullshit. Just recovery.
In this episode, we sit down with Ken to hear his powerful story of addiction, trauma, and recovery. From the challenges of his childhood and the impact of family dynamics to the moment he realized the depth of his addiction, Ken shares openly about the turning points that shaped his healing journey. He discusses how therapeutic tools like EMDR, as well as the practices of vulnerability, connection, and writing, have played a crucial role in his recovery. Ken's journey is one of resilience, hope, and purpose, and a reminder that healing is possible. Let's get into it. All right. Welcome to Rock Bottom with Ryan. I'm here with Ken. Would you like to introduce yourself and say where you're from and all that?
Yeah, my name is Ken Shields. I live in San Diego, California.
All right. And since this show's about rock bottom, and a lot of times when I do my first one-on-one stories with people, I like to kind of hear their background when it came to drinking. And I think your drug of choice was alcohol, correct?
It was.
Yeah.
Although I never met a drug I didn't like.
Okay. Yeah, same here. So would you mind kind of starting off with a little backstory of maybe a little bit about your childhood, how it evolved into the point where you started to drink, and go through how that drinking evolved into a problem that you needed to quit? I know you said you have a lot from your childhood to talk about, so you're welcome to elaborate on a few things that could have led to your drinking, that you were trying to numb some traumas and all that, and you kind of give us an idea of what was going on with you.
Sure. Okay. Well, I grew up in West Virginia, which is not the type of setting that you would think that my story would happen in, because it's just like in the middle of nowhere kind of thing. But I grew up in a Lebanese family, and we, at least a Lebanese family, meaning that my mom's family who surrounded us, she was Lebanese. And there was a lot of businesses. There was a Hallmark gift store. There was a grocery store. There was a general contracting business. So I've literally been working since I was 8 years old. I've been taught customer service since a very young age. So it's kind of like, it wasn't much of a childhood, right? I mean, but I didn't know anything different, and I didn't hate it because I was always making money. But then you throw in the truth is that, and the best way to explain this for people to kind of wrap their heads around this is that there's a landmark study that occurred in the 90s. It was called Adverse Childhood Experiences, or AKA ACEs. And it showed that any child that experienced one of these experiences was much more susceptible to becoming an addict, to having health problems, to having a shorter lifespan. And if you had over 4, the numbers were just ridiculous. Like, most people wouldn't make it out of their 30s. They would have autoimmune disorders. I mean, it's pretty comprehensive. So that said, I experienced 11 of those traumas before I was 12 years old. So all I can't call them regular abuses because I'm still trying to wrap my head around this, because my brain's trying to tell me it still didn't happen. But emotional, physical, sexual abuse, that started about 8 years old. Father was an alcoholic, very abusive verbally, very large, angry man, trained killer, airborne ranger back in the day. And the family it was chaos. There was 4 kids, and we all were within 5 years of each other. Like, my oldest sister is 64 right now. My youngest sister is 57. So we all went through basically the same thing. And growing up like that, I just saw how my father treated my mother, and I went through my young adulthood and my teen years with my finger in the air to my father. I went out of my way to trouble him. I was always in trouble. Then just to kind of deal with that, experimented for the first time. I probably had alcohol when I was 10. And then around 13, junior high school is when it started to kick in full time, kind of like every weekend or every Friday, me and the friends would go and just, it was easy to get beer. I lived in West Virginia, and it was a non-issue. And we just go out and do what young teenagers do, just drink and raise hell, be obnoxious. That kept on. It didn't stop. It just, matter of fact, it just progressively got worse and worse and worse. And in the whole scheme of things, as far as alcoholism goes, more partying, more drugs. I became a drug dealer, and I had a pretty lucrative business, honestly. But I didn't think anything of it. And now all during this time, my father is going through rehabs. He went through 3 different rehabs, and I was around 13, 14 years old when I attended my first Al-Anon meeting. And I remember going to the first meeting, because I only went to one. The guy saying, well, you have to turn anger into understanding. And I'm like, no, I don't. And I just got up and left. Because, I was an angsty teenager. I'm like, fuck you. Hope I can say that. But
Yeah.
I wasn't having that. And now, all the while too, there's 4 of us kids, and I tell my siblings jokingly, but I'm serious, is that I'm the favorite. There's not even a conversation. You can say whatever you want, but I am. And just kind of the thing, like, after my father had gone through recoveries and he actually was sober for a while, and it was traumatic. My mom said to me, I couldn't have done this without you. And that just put me on the moon, right? Because mom's always been my rock. She's the one that's always been there to get me through everything. She's also the first one to tell me that I was an alcoholic at 14 years old. And I'm like, I totally dismissed that. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm just partying. I'm having fun. Turns out I'm avoiding, I'm covering internal pains because no one knows about what's happened to me. I kept that inside for 50 years. And because I think I was raised to be so independent that I became a functioning alcoholic, high functioning alcoholic. So I always had a job. I always paid my bills, above average salary for someone that doesn't have a college degree. And I never thought that I had a problem. I was drinking every day for a long time. And I was also a road warrior. So I'm traveling, 3-4 days out of the week, all over the country, drinking on the company credit card. Still didn't mean anything to me. I'd go out to dinner and have 4 or 5 beers, and then stop by the package store on the way home and get a few more beers, whether I drank them or not. I mean, I usually would, but that didn't feel like a problem to me. Now, there's so much backstory that goes into this when moving up through my life. I mean, I was basically on my own by 14. I was independent. I didn't need to live at the house. I had a job. I was still going to school. I was living at a friend's house. I left home for good at 18 and moved to Rhode Island, and have, I've been independent ever since, and just kind of followed that theme throughout my life. Like, San Diego is my 7th city I've lived in this country. So just being that high functioning and not really suffering the normal things that an in the gutter alcoholic would see when people think about, and it's not that I hadn't been in and out of the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I had been, but I was never one of those people. I mean, before I went into recovery in February of this year, I went to the room 6 or 7 times, and never once did I get a sponsor, and never once did I do the steps. Because that wasn't me. I didn't have a problem. And that's gone on for, 44 years. I was drunk or drugged.
But you wanted to quit
Significantly.
drinking, which is why you are accepted in those rooms, right?
Yep. I didn't want to stop. And every time I went into the rooms, it was for somebody else. It wasn't never for me, because I didn't do things for me. That's not how my brain was wired. Because it's easier to take care of other people than yourself.
Yeah. So, can you, how much were you drinking, do you think, at your worst, if you were high functioning? And it sounds like a lot of that those aspects of your personality of just being fast paced, moving around, being able to maintain job and relationships and be in sales and all that? Do you think that dates back to your childhood where you were basically, you know, as a child, high functioning and having to have jobs and having to do things instead of actually being able to experience being a kid that carried into your adult life? And do you think the overwhelming aspects of your career and your fast paced life led you to want to drink more? Or do you think you were just drinking socially for fun?
Great question. Great question. Was I drinking to cover? I didn't think I was drinking to cover anything. I thought I was just partying because I wasn't being honest with myself. I honestly, genuinely thought that, you grow up as a partier and that clique, that's what you do. I didn't know anything different. And then as far as working and being independent, I was raised that way. So that was an easy, transition from high school into working full time and supporting myself. I didn't even bat an eye about, to be honest with you. I was so happy to leave home. And to be honest with you, I didn't even admit to myself that I was drinking to cover pain until February. Was the first time that I ever admitted to anybody but two other people that I had been sexually abused and had physical abuse and emotional abuse and. So, because something happened. I mean, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag yet about rock bottom, but my rock bottom experience is forever etched into my brain of a memory that I never want to feel again. And it has served as a source of motivation to continue what I'm doing here on day 208 of sobriety. Never been sober as an adult. The longest I ever had from 13 years old was 90. So this is profound for me. And all of the things that the program says that you're going to find and get are happening for me. And it's not supposed to make sense. I'm not asking any questions. I just did what they told me to do, like they did from the beginning. And it works. But you're ready when you're ready. And some people, I'm lucky. A lot of us die from this. Most of us do. Pardon the obvious pun, but a sobering fact, when I was in recovery, I was there with 12 other guys. And the counselor one day said to us, 3 of you are going to make it. The rest of you are going to die from your addiction. I'm like, whoa, that's a Debbie Downer. I mean, you necessarily need to know that, but when he said that, my brain said, you're going to be one of the survivors. That's what I do.
Do you mind going into vivid detail about what led up to your rock bottom moment? Like what was going through your head, what happened, and how did you crawl out?
Yeah. Whoa. Let me do cliff notes on this a little bit.
I know
there's
that's
so
a
much
broad
detail.
question, I know, but
It is. There's a lot. That's why I wrote a book. So let's just start from the birth of my son. And that was in 1998. My wife and I had 5 total pregnancies. I have 1 child. And the way he came into this world is I got a call from our obstetrician who had just come back from maternity leave herself and was going through my wife's chart and could not get a hold of my wife and called me at work and says, go to the hospital right now. And then over the course of the next 18 hours, they gave my wife and their son their last rites and told me that they were going to die. My wife had, it's called HELLP syndrome, HELLP. It's like the severest, pregnancy illness you can have. Her brain was swelling. She was in kidney failure. She was in liver failure. And, I'm just like, this is not ER. What is going on here? I'm just trying to have a child here. So through the grace of God, they both made it through, and my son came out 2 pounds, 4 ounces. But along that way, he suffered a pretty massive stroke, and the motor center of his brain, the top left of his brain, just a big black spot. And to put that in perspective, the first neurologist that we met my son and then looked at his MRI imagery and said to us, if I had looked at this film first, there is no way you could convince me that this is the same child. Because it's remarkable about how high functioning this kid is and the level of brain damage that he has. So here we are, tasked with raising a child with a disability. We don't have any other children, so we don't know anything else, which probably was a good thing. And my drinking during that process was still just as robust. It, probably within the 3rd year of marriage, it became a topic with my ex-wife about how I was drinking. And I just totally, completely discounted her. So she was born in Cleveland. We moved back to Boston after he was born because we knew we needed family to help raise him. And that's when I went back into sales and went back on the road, and the drinking continued. I lost my father to alcoholism in 2006. This is important. So in 2006, I went to West Virginia to bury my father and spread his ashes. And all this time while my ex was married, we would alternate between my house and her parents for Christmases. And it was our turn to be in Boston. And I called her after the funeral and after we'd scattered his ashes, maybe a week before Christmas, and said, I'd like for you and Ryan to come down here and spend Christmas here. And I will never forget the response. It sent chills down my spine. She said, I knew you were going to do this. I'm like, excuse me? What do you do? What did I just do? My father just died. I want my family with me. And I knew from that point forward that I was going to divorce her. I knew that was the last straw. She was a dry addict. She'd never gone through treatment, but she stopped using narcotics. And she was also ill for 12 years and had 16 surgeries. And long story, we can get in that later if you want, but she was also addicted to Oxycontin during this time. So in 2007, when I bought my house in New Hampshire, one of the happiest times of your life, I sat out on my deck, my brand new deck that night, and sobbed because I did not want to be there. But what am I going to do? Leave an ill wife with a child with a disability? No, sometimes your responsibilities are bigger than you are. And there's 10 years away from him graduating high school. And that's why I decided I'll wait till he graduates high school and I'll divorce her. And the week he graduated high school, I asked her for a divorce. So that was a lot to carry. And, meanwhile, what had happened to me in my childhood was still bubbling up inside. I was still ignoring. To be honest with you, it would come up from time to time in my head and I would just put it away. I'm like, nah, it didn't happen. I just, it was like a fleeting thought. It did happen, but I wouldn't allow it to come out. I had a purpose and a job. I was the only income for the family. So I was married for 24 years. And when I got divorced in 2016, I moved to California. I had met another woman, and that kind of was a new chapter of my life. But honestly, I don't think I ever recovered from the divorce. I didn't even go to my initial hearing, and the judge gave her everything she asked for. I was in California, they were in New Hampshire, and I didn't have the money to fly back. I didn't know you could be there on the phone. So I didn't care. Right. So that was my general disposition. I was at the point to where I didn't really care what was happening to me. Just as long as I was drinking and I could make the pain go away, that's what I was doing. So over the next 8 years, from when I moved to California until this January, is when that spiral started. I lost my job as a professional salesperson in 2018. I was a national sales manager of a $250 million company. I was making a lot of money, to unemployed for the next 4 or 5 months. And I knew in the back of my head that I could not do that job again as long as I was drinking. I knew that. That's when it started to occur to me that, yeah, you can't drink like this and have that kind of job. It's a big job. And it wasn't from lack of trying. I put out over 100 resumes over the next 6 months. And when I used to get a call back from every single resume I put out, I did not get one call, which also was not great for my mental health. Of course, because I thought it was me. And I wasn't worthy and I wasn't worth it and all those things. So then I really started feeling sorry for myself. And this is actually in the book too. I found a journal entry from January of 2020. And basically it's me berating myself, saying, why am I self-sabotaging? Why am I here again? I can do this. Put on your big boy pants, la da 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 da. And fast forward to January 2025, I made a similar journal entry that almost mimicked the same thing. And now I know where I am as far as diagnosis. I have complex PTSD. So all the things that I wrote down, my intake therapist told me, says, you couldn't have stopped. You didn't know how to. If you didn't get help, you were going to die. And that validation kind of helped me. That probably got me over the hump, because for the entire time, I thought it was me. It was totally my fault. It was my fault I got abused. It was my fault I lost jobs, and so I had a very low self-esteem. I didn't like me. I never liked me. I'm only just now getting to the point to where I do. So I was engaged to the woman that I met after I divorced my wife. We were together for 8 years, and she was starting to express her concerns about how I was drinking. I was exhibiting behavior like I quit a job without having another one because it was killing me. I did that twice, actually. I never have done that before. And when I did that too, I heard my mom in the back of my head yelling at me for being so irresponsible. And I turned the tables for myself. So like I would be pissed off too. So long story short, she broke up with me in January and she basically completely ghosted me. Like this woman that I loved and adored, and we definitely had a special connection, literally slammed the door shut on me, wouldn't let me communicate with her, just was mean. And it wasn't until this past week where I realized to myself, because I'm starting to have some self-worth, that I didn't deserve to be treated like that. I wouldn't have treated an enemy like that. So, but at that time, I was also homeless because it just so happened that we were moving out of our apartment together in January. And when I told her, she said, I'm going to be homeless. I don't have a job. And she goes, you have options. You have family. Move back to the East Coast. She didn't really care. So I spiraled down. Fortunately for my sister, she got me an Airbnb room over in Bay Park in San Diego. And through most of January and half of February, all I did was drink and party. And it got to the point to where I didn't want to live anymore. I talked to my sister daily. She knew what was going on. And if it weren't for her keeping me on the line and keeping me going, I don't think that I would be here. She's the one that implored me to call 988, and I did. And turned out I called them numerous times. I found out that you can call them 3 times in one day and you get 3 20-minute sessions. And I used those every day for a while. And then it got to a point to where I had the mobile crisis response team come out to my place and talk me off the ledge. And for maybe the grace of God, when they left, the next day when I woke up, something was different, good. I don't know. I can't explain this. But that's when I started the process of getting myself into recovery. And I went to a local place here. I went through a mental health evaluation. I went through a substance abuse evaluation. I got a therapist. I started seeing a therapist. My substance abuse evaluation said that I needed a higher level of care than outpatient. So I needed to go to residential. And that's what I did. I've never been to recovery before. And I went to a 90-day program, which was hard. For someone that's constantly on the move, I felt like a caged animal in this place. But I had a good attitude, right? So from the beginning, I told myself, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it like Ken does everything. I'm going to do it 100%. And I had 3 mantras. Is that number 1 was mouth closed, ears open. Number 2 was, if it's going to help Ken, the answer is yes. And number 3, and to me, the most important one was, if I'm going to go on this journey, I want to inspire people to want to recover. But not by my words, but by my actions. So basically what I did from that point forward was become a student of recovery. And being the ADHD hyper kid, I never read growing up. I read 30 books in 90 days, all self-help books. Brene Brown comes to mind. She's amazing. She's the one that kind of named what I was going through without me realizing it. We watched her TED Talk on shame, and I was blown away. And I came out of that going, why was she talking about me?
She's incredible.
Seriously. I had an emotional response to that. I'm like, what? And that was the catalyst for me to open up and tell the group that I had been abused. And from that point forward, the floodgates opened up. Everything came out, and it was so liberating. And I'm not that guy in recovery. Like, if you've been abused and you're hypervigilant, one of your, I call the gifts of trauma is, how to read people and situations. So if I'm in the presence of someone, they don't even need to say any words to me. I've got to figure it out within 30 seconds. If you say words to me, I'll know very quickly if I can associate with you or not. So you can tell people in recovery that are serious and the ones that are not. And it's kind of disappointing. It's kind of a downer because, some people are there because they have to be and they act that way. And it's like,
Very true.
dude, you're going to die.
Yeah.
You're going to die. And they just don't see it. And I get it. I totally get it, but it doesn't make it any less frustrating. So we had to deal with a lot of that, but that's where I came in to inspire people is I was never shy. I shared every single session. I shared from my heart. There were tears, and I'm with a bunch, all dudes. Dudes don't, they make jokes about I'm crying. I didn't care. I wanted to die. So I wanted to make sure that I never went back to that position again.
Yeah.
And
I
I
went in
just kept that
reluctantly
momentum.
I went in reluctantly as well. I apologize for cutting you off, but I went
No
in
worries.
hesitant about embracing what we had to do in treatment. By the time the last couple of weeks came around, people thought I worked there because I was so involved, so enthusiastic, all over the place, giving tours to the new guys. Like, it's just amazing how much you can flip that switch, But I'll
It
let you go
is.
back.
That's very familiar. And that's kind of how I went, is I kind of became a leader without being called the leader, because I did it by my actions. And that's how you lead anyway. You don't tell people how to do things, you show them. And I did something that I had never done all of my life. I put myself out there, right? And I always knew that I wanted to do that. I always had that picture of Ken in my mind while I was drinking that I thought I would never achieve. And that's what I'm making happen right now. That wish that I had in my mind of what I know I am capable of, I get to do now. And, let's go to January, 8 months ago. 9 months ago, I wanted to die. And here I am about on the cusp of starting to live my dream. And I'm still in sober living. I still go to classes every day. And I'm getting a kind of pressure from my therapist and my counselors that I'm doing too much. Deaf ears, man. I don't know what that means. I understand what it means conceptually, but my actions, I feel so guilty if I slow down because I don't want to miss one opportunity. I'm an entrepreneur, and when people tell me that I shouldn't be doing something, as an entrepreneur, it tells me you are right on track. Because that's how most of the stories go, right? They told people that you're crazy, that's never going to work. The guy that started FedEx got a C on his project because the teacher said, that's not going to work. Enough said. So there's just all kinds of stories like that. I'm not saying that's mine, but I don't want to limit myself. I don't want to say I have all these mental illnesses and I have this addiction. So I gotta slow down. I do have to slow down, but I don't have to stop being ambitious because this is kind of like motivating me and it's pushing me to want to be first and foremost an advocate for us addicts, for us abuse survivors, for us CPTSD survivors, because no one should have to feel like I felt growing up. And now that I'm going through treatment, I have 2 therapists. I see each of them once a week. So I got 2 sessions a week and a counselor, which is basically like a therapist. I'm unpacking a lot of stuff. I'm carrying around a lot of things. I'm realizing things I never knew before. And the beauty about rigorous honesty and having a higher power, which I call God, I don't want to drink. Of course, it pops into my head. And the first thing, snap comment in my brain says, hell no. Because the only thing that alcohol has brought into my life is pain and anguish. And I've been showed this repeatedly, and I still went back. And we hear these stories in all the rooms that when we sit in meetings about, I went to rehab with a guy that had 12 DUIs. At some point, don't you think, maybe I should look into this? And something that's also unique about my story. I've never once been arrested. I've never had a DUI. I could stop, honestly. I didn't drink to blackout. I never had a blackout. One major disadvantage, I think, is that I also never got hangovers. I could drink copious amounts of alcohol and wake up the next day and go, all right, let's go.
Holy crap. I'm so
I wasn't
jealous.
helpful.
God, I've never been
That wasn't helpful. Yeah.
You're not human.
Well, I kind of figured out that maybe that's the Irish gene because my father was Irish. I don't know. I say that in jest.
I'm
I don't wanna-
Irish too, and if I drink for 2 nights, I get the shakes on day 3. So,
Do you really?
Yeah.
I've never had DTs.
wow.
I've never had withdrawal.
I had seizures.
And I
couldn't
can't
even
explain it.
I couldn't even put my contacts in.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It's
Same
hell.
thing too. Physically, my kidneys are fine. My liver's always been fine. My blood work's always been good.
Awesome.
I have no explanation for that.
Can I ask another question, just backtracking a tiny bit? So what are a couple of those, do you mind going into a couple of traumas that you're working on now that are helping you with your sobriety, with your recovery, that you're just facing head on that stand out to you?
Yeah.
I'm sorry to put you through it if you're not comfortable.
No, that's okay. I'm okay. I'm doing I have to do this. This is part of recovery.
Yeah. I
I may
appreciate
not
it.
stay together, but I'll do the best I can. Is the sexual abuse is the hardest thing. That is what we're working on now. If you're familiar with it, I'm doing a therapy called EMDR, which stands for eye movement desensitization reprocessing. So, like a lot of trauma survivors, when you go through something traumatic as a child, you're not equipped to deal with it. So your brain takes over and it literally rewires your nervous system to protect you. So from that point forward, from eight years old, I went into fight or flight. And that's where the hypervigilance comes from. All these things that are obvious to me now that I see in my behaviors, which are maladaptive for an adult, is what I get to work on, right? So basically through EMDR, I follow my therapist's finger back and forth at a rapid motion, right? But she puts me in a situation. After my abuse, I was in third grade. We had this shed out back. So instead of going to school, I would leave like I was going to school, and I would go out back and I would sit in the shed. I did that for 3 weeks before anybody realized I was missing. And through EMDR, we figured out that the shed was my safe place. That was the only place that I felt safe. And it was also the birth of my, for lack of better words, my alter ego, my bravado Kim. Like I wrote in my letter to myself, I wrote to my 8-year-old self, is that the world was going to hear me because nobody came when I was quiet. And that was the beginning of all the trouble I was getting into, the walking around with my finger in the air. And a lot of these memories I didn't recall. And EMDR brought back so many things. Like now, unfortunately, I have these vivid color pictures in my head of the actual event. I know exactly where I was sitting. I know what I was wearing. I know, that it was light out. I know everything. And yet my brain still tries to downplay it and discount it, that it didn't happen. Like constantly ask myself, this really happened? Am I overreacting? Am I making a big deal about this? And I'm not. And I just don't feel that. Okay. It's a weird thing. Like my heart wants it, but my brain's still protecting me. And I want it so bad. And I know conceptually and intellectually what that looks like, but I'm just not there yet. And I'm still fighting to accept myself, to not blame it on me, to not think that I'm worthless and that I have to people please and constantly explain myself and over validation and over compensation and all that stuff surrounded around. I spent my life, basically, I just want you to go away. Leave me alone. I'm going to say anything I possibly can that's going to make you go away as fast as possible. And if that means putting myself at a disadvantage to do so, it's exactly what I'm going to do. Fond, my first wife, ran me. I just, because she was also verbally abusive to me and my father was too. And as soon as a voice raises for me, shut down, I leave. Bye. Good luck with that. And I still do that because that's not how you communicate. And I remember from a young age too, seeing how my father would deal with my mother. And I remember thinking to myself, why would you treat somebody like that? And I didn't want to be like that. So I'm going to go through that and bring back these memories and actually dig up memories that my brain had suppressed from me. And honestly, we've stopped the EMDR because it was a little too overwhelming for me. There's a point to this, right? We've put my adult self in the shed with my 8-year-old self, and we're trying to get me to leave. And I'm not having it. I don't want to leave. And that's the next step in my therapy and my treatment. So we have to go back now and do some more back history of what happened right after the abuse up until the point I was sitting in the shed. So I don't know how long that's going to take. I'm not mad about it. I just want to make progress. But the EMDR, I will say for me, is stunningly effective very quickly. So you have to be in a state of mind to be able to even start it. It took me 8 months of therapy just to get to that point.
Yeah, I should consider looking into it because I just admitted on another episode I did a few weeks ago, I publicly admitted that I had been sexually abused when I was 8 years old, 7 and 8 years old. So and it's something that I didn't really start analyzing until treatment because I think all my years of drinking and stuff, I just kind of pushed it to the side. And then now it's like ever since I started talking about it a little more openly, I'm starting to realize maybe I do need to get some form of treatment for it.
Congratulations for you, man. You're a brave, courageous man. I'm right there with you. And it's humble. It's humbling. We're supposed to be big and strong, right? I'm so rub some dirt on it.
Yeah. But
And the thing is that the exact opposite is that I had to become vulnerable and honest to heal. And quite frankly, I don't care what anybody thinks about me. And that's by design, I find. I have to care about me, and I don't do a very good job at that. And going through therapy and becoming sober are all cogs, right? It's not just one thing. It's everything. Right? We have to make this a lifestyle. And that's one thing I remember too about AA. What do you mean a lifestyle? I don't need a lifestyle. I'm not powerless over anything, all these things that we balked at. And I'm like, oh, now I get it. Lifestyle, service. Yeah. Yep. That's how you stay sober. It's crystal clear sense to me now. And I've embraced it. I average 10 meetings a week right now. And my first 90 days out of recovery, I did 150 meetings. They say do 90 and 90. I'm like, no, it's not enough.
I did 128. I thought I was cool.
Yeah. And I really enjoy, I need the meetings, and I found the perfect meeting, small room. I get to share almost every single time. And that to me is what it's about. I need to share because it helps me selfishly, but it also helps everybody else. That I think as alcoholics, we forget sometimes that sitting in those seats, that's service. And that counts. And that's like the most important thing to me. I actually need that. I crave it. And now I understand why they say meeting makers make it.
What was your attitude going into it at first, in that first 90 days, like the first few weeks? Were you kind of reluctant, kind of didn't have that humility yet? Or you went in just ready?
I went, like I said, man, everything, whatever happened when I had the suicide ideations, switch flicked. And I went in saying, yes, I want help. I want a sponsor. I want to work the steps. So I finished the steps before I got out of rehab. I finished in like 80 days.
Great.
And I say this in meetings often, is that step 4 and 5 and 8 and 9, for those of you that don't know, you normies, is that's when you write your moral inventory, and then you tell the human being of all your wrongs. And then 8 and 9 is making amends to them, saying you're sorry, basically. For me, that entire process came out like poetry. I couldn't wait to get it out. I didn't care what anybody thought, because I felt the weight after completing step 4 was remarkable, how that made me feel. And then when I did 5 and went and sat by myself for an hour and reflected, so much more weight came off. I'm so much lighter than I was, 6 months ago. And every day I get a little bit closer to that serenity that we talk about so often in AA. It's fleeting. I don't have it all the time. I don't really relax yet. I don't know what that's like, as absurd as that sounds, because I don't. Hypervigilance. I'm still in that mode, and I never realized all the things that I do, all these personality traits were designed for me to keep myself safe. I'm completely safe right now, but my nervous system says, oh, no, we're not. So literally, one of the things I do, I believe in affirmations. I tell myself every day, 100 times a day or more, I'm safe. Those 2 words until something changes, because not to lie, I am uncomfortable most of the time. And especially with all the therapy, I've really embraced that it's okay not being okay. In the beginning, the brain was like, my God, do something about this right now.
Which is drink, right?
And
usually.
Which is drink or do a drug or yeah. And now, I think that we all hate this, but people that have gone through recovery is sit with it. Like, no, I don't want to sit with this.
Like we talked about yesterday, and just keep moving.
Just keep moving.
Yeah.
Just keep moving. Avoid. It works.
It works.
No, it doesn't. Well, hey, it's how we dealt, and And alcohol was how we dealt. That's just what, I don't know if we were born this way. I don't know how you feel about that. I follow another alcoholic from Ireland that was an addict for 23 years, and she's recovered. She's in like day 280 or something like that. And she had a question yesterday in her feed about, do you think we're born addicts? Do we all feel, because one thing I noticed in the rooms is that we all say the same thing, uncomfortable in my own skin. I always felt like that.
I never
But
did
I don't know if that was
possibly a
from
month ago.
the abuse, you know? I don't know where that's from. Was I born like that? Was it, I mean, definitely was a combination of all the things. But to be like, and my alter ego was bravado, was arrogance, was FAFO. It's not how I am.
Yeah.
You know what brings me joy is being kind. I love being kind to people. I mean, that's what I do now. I'm a behavior technician. I work with kids with autism, and I don't get paid very much anymore, but it brings me joy because I went through that with my son, and I learned that simplicity is bliss. I don't need things. I need people and connection to make me happy. And that, I try to keep it that simple. Trying my hardest. I mean, of course I want things, but it's not necessary. And once I removed money from the equation of what do I want to do, the answer was obvious. It was so easy. So that's what I do now. And, you know, my aspirations are at this point, though, I can continue to do that, but I want to get on the TED stage. I think my story is compelling. There's way more than I've talked about here, and to go on the circuit and be a speaker, because the reason why I wrote the book is I want to help people. I want them to see that there's hope, that when we're, you know, hopeless and there's, you know, complete demoralization as an alcoholic, when you think there's no reason to continue, that no one wants you around, it's false. And it can change in a hurry. And I'm just dumbfounded by, and I'm proud of me, man.
Sure. You should be. Oh my gosh.
It's not something that I said about myself very often in life. It's starting to sink in, right? I'm starting to get that feel because I still am on the run. I'm still thinking that I need to do more. It's a hard, you know, the complex PTSD is no shit. It is not hyped up PTSD. It is a completely different animal. 90% of the time it arises from childhood trauma. And we're talking about rewiring your nervous system, which you have to unwire, basically. And there's only one way to do that, and that's repetition. And just keep on correcting the things that my maladaptive behaviors, and it takes a long time. And I came to that epiphany this week is that, yeah, I'm going to be working on this for years. This isn't a few months thing. I've made a lot of progress in a short amount of time, but I can safely say I will never be without a therapist for the rest of my life. Now, I want to be self-deprecating and call myself a mental patient, but my therapist won't let me do that anymore. So I made up something new. I'm like, oh, I'm the guy that the former person known as the mental patient. I can't even do that. Now I gotta come up with a symbol. I know, right? So, well, it turns out too that comedy is another, humor is another avoidant
I use
coping
humor to
mechanism.
deflect everything. Yeah. At least I was.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I can make anything funny because I just feel like any, you know, toxic situation or anything that's trying to bring you down, I make some kind of humor out of it, which can bother some people, but I'm just kind of like, you know, unless it's life or death, that's not going to faze me.
Did that bother you though? It never bothered me. I'm like, I don't care if you didn't like that. Fuck
No,
you.
I don't care. No, I'm just accepting that's how I am.
Yeah. Thank you. I did the same thing. And yeah, unapologetically, just the bravado and the arrogance I had was just stupid. So, and there's only two people that ever saw through that. That was my former fiance and my mother. That's like that. I don't know. My former fiance, I don't know how she knew. I don't know. That's what I mean about a special connection. You know, there's people come into your life for a reason. And something else that I've learned in recovery and going through this pain is that it's all about perspective, and nothing is happening to me, it is happening for me. Because so far, I've made it through 100% of my challenges and traumas in my life. So that's a pretty good record.
It's
and
amazing.
The key for me is to keep on getting up.
Yeah.
And that's what I do. I can't tell you why I do. I don't know what motivates me. Just what I do. Because failure is not an option. I just want at this point to be better and to help people.
Good. So what are you doing these days? What's your everyday 24-hour period look like?
Every day. Okay. So I'm in a sober living house. I live with 3 other guys, and Monday through Friday, I attend classes on recovery, whether it's life skills or process group or mental health group, all these things that kind of keep us present in the moment to treat our addictions and to be aware of, relapse and signals and signs like that. It's also helpful too, because I'm not paying rent right now and I live in San Diego. It's very helpful. But they also help you get your life together with all your medical issues, anything legal. The goal is when you come into this program, is when you walk out the door, you will have been able to save some money, have 0 legal issues hounding you, have no debt, and ready for that fresh start. And so it's like a graduation process, which is different for everybody. You can be in the program for up to 18 months. So I don't know. I haven't decided how long I'm going to be there. I don't know. I'm going to be there for at least another 6 months, no question. So that takes up most of the morning and afternoon. My latest class ends at 1:30. And then I've found a lot of satisfaction in volunteering at an animal rescue, where I go there almost every day and walk dogs, man. I got to have that. And it's because talk about keeping you present. Whenever I'm with the dogs, I'm present, and I've excelled there. They love me and they keep on telling me how much they appreciate me. And I'm like, you have no idea what you're doing for me. This is totally selfish. I need this. This is important for me. So that's, and everything that I'm doing is on purpose, right? Drinking is a full-time job. So now I need a full-time job to reoccupy that time. So not only that, I went back to school. I started this fall semester. I'm pursuing a degree in social work. I'm going to become a therapist because I can help a lot of people. So that's going to be kind of a never-ending thing. I also am going to volunteer at a domestic violence center. And I started that ball rolling when I was in recovery, because I wanted to embrace that community. And that's really who I want to help most of all, are men or adults that went through sexual abuse as a child and are now dealing with X. Because especially for men, it's really a hard thing to come clean on and to find a level of comfort. I've been in therapy now for 8 months. I am so uncomfortable. It's doable, but I know that I can help people do that. So I got that. I go to meetings every day on some days, like on Wednesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays, Sundays. I go to 2 meetings a day. Sometimes I've gone to 3 meetings a day, but I just do a lot of meetings. I do H&I whenever possible. I did one this week where I went to another rehab and talked to some folks about, tell them the story, spreading that hope and fellowship. And I just don't stop moving. Honestly, I leave around 7 o'clock in the morning. I don't come back home till 9 at night, mostly because my MO and how I operate. But I spend a lot of time journaling. I spend a lot of time writing the book. I'll go to the library, but I spend a lot of time down on the water. It's like my happy place, and it brings me peace. And I've also embraced solitude. I've always acted like an extrovert, but I'm comfortable around people, but I'm an introvert. I figured this out now, is that when I'm by myself, and when you recover by yourself, I've read, because trust me, I research everything. Just a side note, my therapist says, stop with the research. You're not processing, you're analyzing. Like, okay. So literally I did. I had to stop reading books. I had to stop doing all my research. Yeah, because I was more interested in the process of what my brain was going through, and I knew I'm making new circuits and all these, because I'm a psycho. I can't help it.
No, I know.
I have to know.
I read into things, I read into everything. Oh my gosh. Once I stopped doing that, I could actually live finally.
Yeah, the whole overthinking thing, I know you appreciate. Yeah, I'm a master at that. So, and it turns out that was helpful, because I did start to process things. I made a lot more progress by not being so involved with it. I'm talking with my therapist like a peer, and she's like, "Who are you?" So
did the house that you're living in, did they arrange the therapist for you, or did you seek it out yourself?
One of them is part of the program. One of them I sought out myself. Is when I went to the initial intake for my mental health intake, and my substance abuse intake is when I got my first therapist. Exactly. I have the alphabet.
Yeah. Okay.
PhD. I don't, I have it all. Um, Other than that, now, because you can't work for the first 3 months in the program, I just got approved to get a part-time job. Currently on disability, we're at like a gray area here too, because honestly, I don't know if I'm ready to go back to work. I know I can't go back to work right now as a behavior technician, work with the kids. It's just too much. It's too triggering for me right now. So I used to work at Sprouts. I'm kind of lining things up there, but I'm just trying to figure out if I can stay on disability because they want us to be able to save money. I'm like, well, how does it matter how I get money? I don't know that working right now, and we can only work 20 hours a week anyway. And I don't know that is, if I'm ready for that. So that's TBD. Every situation is a unique situation. So, and I basically do that and then repeat.
Okay.
I try to go a new meeting every week because there's over 900 meetings in San Diego every day. It's ridiculous.
Can you
I
tell
think it's the
me?
most in the country.
Jeez, yeah. I mean, San Diego's beautiful. I haven't been there much since I was a kid, but I just have nothing but good memories there. It's a beautiful area.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the book you're writing? What that's about?
Yeah.
And if you're welcome to
So,
read an excerpt or 2 or 3 from it, I'm curious to hear what's going on
okay.
in the book.
All right. I appreciate that. So one thing I never did before I got into recovery was I never journaled. I never meditated. Now I do both of those things every day, twice a day. And it started out as a therapy journal and just like I kept journals through my recovery. So I would write every day, morning and night. And it was kind of like a thing where I could also have a gratitude list and my intentions, just kind of being present, which I had never been. And then that morphed into just an open-ended journal where I was just writing on blank paper. And one day I was reading it and kind of put it in perspective for myself. I'm like, that cliche is so true. Fact is stranger than fiction. I said, no one's going to believe this. This is ridiculous. People don't go through stuff like this and then come out the other side. So what I did is I wrote the book. It actually finished it once. And I didn't like it. Well, I liked it because it's totally raw. It's totally honest and vulnerable. So people are going to be able to connect with that aspect of some of the things that I've gone through in my life. But I really wanted to kind of emphasize that this can be like a handbook for you. I want you to be able to learn from my experiences and the things that I'm using on a daily basis to help me get through a day while I'm going through recovery. So what I did is I went back and I rewrote it, and I still kept the raw, honest emotion, but then I parallel that with science, with the techniques that I'm using, like whether it's EMDR or CBT therapy or positive affirmations. Just there's so many things I use on a daily basis to get through a day, to get myself off a cliff because this thing takes over. And any addict knows that this is the problem right here. This thing never shuts off. And it's a constant battle. And then you throw in CPTSD on that, is that it's also very critical. Like, this is a complex PTSD awareness month. And we don't realize what it's like. It's a silent illness that we go through life with. But let me give you a snapshot into like a part of my day. When I get out of the car to walk into a store, it's a negotiation. I'm thinking to myself, well, I can go that way, I can save a few steps. So I can go this way, I'll go that way. And then it's not over when I walk in the door. I'm like, okay, where's the cart? Which cart? Say this cart? Everything is questioned. Every single thing that I do, and everything contains hypervigilance. I never knew I was doing that. I thought that was normal. It's not. I don't have to do that. It's exhausting. And I do it from the minute I wake up until the minute I go to sleep. So that just gives you an idea of the amount of tools that I have to employ on a daily basis until I can start to change my behaviors and have them become more self-conscious. And it's a slow process, right? Healing's not linear. Although it's a roller coaster. So I have made progress in that. And one of the big things in that is setting boundaries, because before I had zero. And that was to my huge disadvantage. And now I'm on purpose now. Boundaries are uncomfortable. That's how my clinical director told me. He says, you're doing it right when you feel uncomfortable when you set a boundary. Because it's awkward, because people want to push boundaries. That's what they do. And I will no longer allow that because that puts me at a disadvantage and I'm not putting myself at a disadvantage for anybody anymore. So in the book also, when I figured out I was going to make this a book, it turned into a major brain dump for me. It was a therapy journal and it was a way for me to get out on paper all the stuff that's been in my head all my life. And it was really cathartic. I can't tell you how helpful it was. Because writing, another thing I never did, because I never would slow down long enough to do that, just like reading a book. But now I crave it. I have my journal with me all the time, and I'll just, especially like during stressful times, I whip it out and I just start writing. And that for me has been a key game changer for me not having panic attacks or going into anxiety. So I feel like that's going to be a part of me for the rest of my life because it's that beneficial for me and I enjoy it so much, which I never would have picked that ever of a hobby that would be that good for me. But that just goes to show that, the only thing you have to change when you get sober is everything. I'm not doing all those addictive behaviors anymore. And if you want, I can share with you.
The only
right?
thing you have to change when you get sober is everything. I love it.
Yeah, you do, right? I mean, that's what I'm experiencing. It puts the cliche reinvent yourself into major perspective.
Yeah, it does.
So anyway, I can share with you one of the formats of the book was what I did is this started out as a therapy thing. And it was so compelling that I did it a number of times. So the first one is I wrote a letter to my 8-year-old self because early on in therapy, my therapist told me I needed to talk to my 8-year-old self more and I needed to be nice to him. And I'm thinking to myself, what the hell are you talking about? Well, it turns out it's only weird if it doesn't work because it works. Let me tell you. I have to reassure my 8-year-old self that I'm safe and that it's okay to come out of that shed. But it's a constant thing. I have to continue to do that because, this is Freudian, is that my inner child is the one that creates my fear and keeps me from doing things. Fear is purely a human thing. And it was never said better by FDR. The only thing you have to fear is fear itself because you don't have to have it. You can get by it. It's a thing. So let me, I have to pull up this letter and I'll try to get through it without breaking up. It's a tough thing to do. But anybody I've read this to.
Appreciate you sharing.
Yeah. Well, it helps me. And I need this. Okay. So it's just called Dear Ken. Is this the one? I can make sure I have the right one. I'm sorry, bear with me.
No worries.
Come on, robot. Also, while I'm looking for this, I also wrote a letter to my son, which I learned how to be a father by not being like mine. And I got to live the childhood I was robbed of through my son raising him because I'm 12. And I just kind of came to that realization this week also. And it's been a tough week for that. And I wrote one to my teenage self and I wrote one to my mother. And they're placed throughout the book in specific areas to kind of drive home certain points. So, all right, here we go. This is Dear Ken. You've carried so much pain for so long. I see you. I know how hard it's been to keep moving forward when all you wanted to do was rest and to be held, to be loved without conditions. And I want you to know I'm here now. I'm not going anywhere. I see you in that shed in 3rd grade, sitting there in a coat, alone, confused, terrified, hiding from a world that didn't know how to protect you. You didn't understand it then, but at that moment showed your tenacity. From that day forward, you were determined to be heard, whether the world wanted to listen or not. And you were, Ken, loud, brave, bold, and broken. You carried a false bravado like armor, but it wasn't you, not really you. You weren't a fuck up. You weren't a failure. You were surviving. You made yourself loud because no one came when you were quiet. I forgive you for all the ways you tried to be invisible, for the ways you overcompensated to prove your existence. You weren't wrong for wanting love, for chasing it, for drinking it, for breaking under the weight of it. That wasn't weakness. That was a boy who had become his own protector, and he did. I remember when you asked for help, not gently, but desperately. When Margaret left and the pain swallowed you whole. When Becky made you call when you picked up the phone not once, but dozens of times, just so you wouldn't die alone. That wasn't weakness. That was courage. That was the moment that you stopped hiding. That was the moment Ken began to rise. You cried in that bed because you thought you had nothing left. But you were wrong. You had you, the real you, the kind, empathetic, sensitive man who always wanted to treat people with dignity, who had been buried beneath addiction, grief, fear, and guilt for decades, but who never stopped dreaming. Now look at you, creating the person you've always imagined, that mystical, powerful version of yourself that only used to live in your mind. Now stepping into the light. I see him. I love him. I am him. You're going to thrive, Ken. You're going to change lives. You're going to speak on stages and write a book that gives people hope. You're going to show the world what it means to come from nothing and become something remarkable. Because you've lived the truth, and the other side of darkness is blinding light, and it feels like freedom and joy and peace. You're not alone anymore. I will never leave you. With love, pride, and belief, Ken.
Wow, my gosh. Thank you so much for sharing.
You're welcome. That kills me. That was
So deep, so well written, so honest, so raw. It hits all, yeah, it hits every area of the heart.
that's what it takes for me. I have to put everything out there, or I'm not gonna recover. I'm gonna die. I don't want to die. I have a purpose now that God has shown me, and it's clear to me. And I'm really excited to fulfill that. And I'm really excited to publish this book. And if it helps one person, it's a success for me. I just want to help people. I don't want people to have to feel like I felt. I shouldn't have to feel the way that I feel and discount myself and literally try to convince myself on a daily basis that all these things happened to me, because they did. And the sooner I can admit that genuinely in my brain, the sooner I'm going to heal. And the more healing I do just means the more healing I can do for others. And I think in this situation that the only way is to be an example, because if you're not an addict, you don't get it. You don't understand. Matter of fact, I made a post on my Instagram page, right? I started following my journey. And one thing I covered, because it was a frustration for me, I said, if you've ever said, can't you just stop to your addict? Do me a favor, educate yourself, because we can't. That's not something we're capable of. That's what makes us an addict. Go to Al-Anon, do your research, because once you understand that, then you're really going to get through to your addict, right? Because you just don't know. If you've never been dogged and hounded by that, about that overwhelming feeling to say, hey, I need more, I got to drink more, I got to put something else in my body. This is not, no. It's not that it's ever going to go away. Those feelings still exist. It's now I'm just putting them to better use. I wrote a book. So
It's amazing.
Yeah,
So happy for you. And
it's-
it sounds like it's, cathartic and therapeutic and just helping you with your recovery, just writing down your emotions, feelings from your past to present. It's so cool.
so helpful. I can't never explain how helpful it's been. And I've already started compiling content for the book too, which is this, why are they telling me I'm doing too much? What?
It's going to help
So,
people.
I mean,
That's what I say with this
it is.
podcast. If it helps one person, I feel like I'm successful if I help one person.
I'm right there with you, brother, man. And we are doing that. We need to be confident in that. Yeah. So the second book is going to be, I record every one of my therapy sessions, and basically it's going to be like a timeline of my recovery from mental illness.
Wow. So
And I think that that's going to be really powerful. I'm going to collect this information for at least a year, if not longer, because it's going to take me more than a year to get to a point where I feel like I'm probably going to be comfortable. I don't know what well looks like. That's foreign to me.
That you'd be showing people, so.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm willing to share that because I know how much that will help people because there's still a stigma behind therapy. And I got that when I told my mother I was going to therapy for the first time. She said, well, how long do you have to do that, Mom? Probably forever. And it's true though. And I welcome that because for most of my life, especially while I was drinking, I ignored my mental health. I did not have a therapist and it just got worse and worse and worse. And what the reality is that you can bury for as long as you want or think you want, it's going to come out one way or another, good or bad. So I recommend to anybody to do the good route and go get a therapist and start talking about it because the other ways can kill you.
Yeah.
Because it almost took me out.
What did that was one of my questions that I like to ask kind of towards the end. What advice would you give to anybody who is struggling right now or who's just getting into recovery on not just drinking, but how to address, problems from the past, traumas, how to really reinvent yourself, as we said?
Wow. Another great question. That's a tough one, right? Because of denial. But all I got to say is if I had someone to say something to me that I think that would sink in when I was in denial, it would be as simple as this is happening to you and it's going to continue to happen to you. So if there's any part of your thought process that discounts any part of treatment, you're doing it incorrectly. It's that kind of that mouth closed, ears open mantra is drink the Kool-Aid because our best thinking got us to where we landed. And unfortunately, it's so maddening, right? It's so different for everybody. And it took me 44 years to get in the rooms. So I'm not a great example.
You're a great example right now. Honestly, you are a great example. I mean, even just
okay,
talking
now,
about your trauma has actually helped me talk about mine again. And it's just like you're helping and you don't even realize it.
thank you for that. I need that. I need a third party advocate to tell people what I actually do because I don't really know. Because I'm not really concerned. I'm not here for accolades. I want to do this all silently and secretly, as far as I'm concerned. But be a student of recovery as well. Be really interested because you're taking interest in your health, and there's so many facets to your health. Nutrition, mental, physical, all that stuff matters. When it doesn't work, the only thing you have to change is everything. So, and that's a cliche, but it's true. And until you can get to the point to where you actually believe that and think that you need to, you're going to relapse.
Yeah, it's so true.
You experienced this. I was in rehab with a guy that he was in there for his 14th.
Yeah, I've heard of some people being in there 10 times. I myself actively tried putting drinking probably 25 times and never made it more than 30 days all on my own.
Well, the only reason why I made it 90 is because I had to, because I was on a food elimination diet because I have an autoimmune disorder and turns out food's mean to me. So I was trying to figure out what I could eat.
Yeah, that's, I made it 90 days just because I was going to meetings and telling myself, I can do this without treatment. But then I slowed down going to meetings after that and immediately relapsed. So what I was doing was starting to work and I started resting on my laurels, as we say, and thought I had it figured out. And next thing you know, I'm back at the mini mart.
And you know what's terrifying about that is that all of a sudden you're walking to your car with a beer in your hand. You don't know how it happened.
Exactly. I feel like it's out of
so many people have said that. Like, what?
That still frightens me to this day, almost being a year in. And I'm just kind of like wondering, I hope that hour doesn't overcome me. So I just stick to the plan every single 24 hours.
You know what's worked for me is the schedule. When I came out of rehab, I gave myself, it's basically a relapse prevention plan. So everything I do over the course of the day is planned. So from meditating to journaling to whatever the thing is I'm doing to help myself get better. So when I look at it and I see something has fallen off, that's a red flag for me. I'm like, okay, what happened? Why did I stop doing this? And did I replace it with anything? Because I don't want to rest on my laurels because I don't ever want to go back to how I felt in January. So for me, if it's a daily checklist and that's living a lifestyle and it's going to keep me sober, that's what I have to do. Do I want to every day? No. But I do because I don't want to die. and it's certain death if I start drinking again.
Yep. That's so true. That's what I think too. I'm like, if I drink again, I'm dead. I'm not going to make it to a hospital and get out and get another chance. I think, drink, you die. You drink, you die. So,
I don't think I would want to be honest with you.
yeah.
Because, as alcoholics, we go right back to where we left off. It's not like we work our way back up to being a raging alcoholic. We're already there.
Yeah. Right back to it. That's how it was on my last relapse. I was in disbelief that I was back to where I left off the time before I got that 90 days. It literally took maybe 3 days and I was just back in the same position. So it was
I have
sad.
a question about that.
Yeah.
Well, how did that make you feel physically? Because obviously your body didn't have the physical tolerance for all that alcohol, but you still put in the same amount that you were before.
Yeah. It was horrible. I spent every morning throwing up, had the withdrawals. I felt weak. I was constantly sweating, DTs. I was getting sick. I was sleeping constantly. It was horrible. And I was probably like 18 to 25 drinks a day.
Oh my God. And how long did you do that?
For that last relapse, I was doing it for about 45 days until I finally said, hey, I need to go to the hospital because I was having seizures in my shower. And I threw in the towel. I got to that hospital and the nun walked in, and a nun from your childhood walked in who knew that I was in the hospital. And it was kind of like a spiritual experience because I was just looking up at the ceiling, just so disappointed in myself that I got myself there again. And the nun who knew me from childhood saw my name on the room list because she goes and checks people out before they pass away and everything. And she walked in and just said, hey, I think you should do something different this time. I think God wants you to do something different. And I'm not extremely religious. I am more spiritual now than I was before at that moment. But I just said, you know what? Okay, I'm going to find a rehab and I'm going to give it a try. And once I got to treatment, I never looked back.
That's an awesome story. That's God for me. There's a word for that. God, a God moment, whatever. But I have something similar, is that within a week's time, when I in January, when I wanted to die, I found myself in a Catholic church and I was sitting in a pew sobbing, and the father came up. I don't know where he came from, but he came and sat beside me, and I told him what was going on, that I was going to go into rehab. And I didn't tell him I wanted to die because I'm a Catholic. I think he figured it out. And turns out he had 2 years sober. I'm like, what? Okay. Then I call my best friend, whom I went to kindergarten with. He was 1.5 years sober. He just never told me, because him and I did copious amounts of drugs and out drinking together. And then I called another friend of 25 plus years who also happened to be my boss for 15 years. He was 6 years sober. I'm like, all right, God, I get the message. I got it.
It's amazing how many alcoholics and people in recovery you can find once you're in recovery. It almost surprises you how many people have gone through it.
Yeah, we're not really unique. Well, we are the ones that actually recover, right?
Yeah.
Most of us die.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Sad reality.
Yeah. So I'm just so grateful that I've been able to make this transition. At age 38, I just if I waited another 20 years or so, I don't know what would have happened to my body, but I know that at one point I was given 4 weeks to live if I continued drinking the way I was. And I just thought to myself, wow, here I thought I was a young, in shape guy and I might die. Like, this disease is going to kill me. So it was frightening.
I never got news like that, man. I don't even know what that would feel like.
I mean,
I knew I was going to die.
I didn't care. I didn't even care in that moment. I was actually thinking about alcohol. I was like, how can I get out of this?
Isn't that the damnedest thing?
Yeah, that's so scary.
The whole time I was in the Airbnb in Bay Park in January, I made sure I had the beer in the refrigerator. So when I woke up in the morning, I'm going to have a beer. And I drank until I didn't have any there. And I would go to the Irish pub and drink there with the fellas. I had the same routine. I just did it.
Yeah.
Day in and day out. That's just what I did. I was just trying to be numb as I possibly could. And then more messages too. I remember I was at my therapy appointment. I went out to start my car. It wouldn't start. The starter was bad. I was in the parking lot for an hour trying to get the damn thing started. I'm like, you really?
Things that start.
I really don't. I don't need this. Yeah.
I know, things to start crashing down. What's a quote that you would like to share to kind of close off the episode?
It's okay not to be okay. Because my brain didn't believe that. It was like, fix this immediately. No, but it is. And you sit with it and get used to it, because that's what living life on life's terms is. And perspective is everything. Nothing's happening to me. It's happening for me. Everything that happens to me challenging in my life is a lesson for me to learn. But if you go through life thinking that it's woe is me, then you're not have the right mindset. And those two things, as hokey as they are, right? Again, it's only weird if it doesn't work, have sustained me and helped me get to where I am right now. And I'm glad that they work, to be honest with you. That's good. It's been very helpful.
Well said. Thank you.
Rock Bottom with Ryan. No bullshit, just recovery.
I would love to come back because, it's like a Cliff Note version of what I kind of touched on today. There's more.
No, I
didn't even talk about.
I feel like that's the, hold on, let me stop it. I'll stay online. I'm just going to stop the recording.